Let's speak to Paul Embery now, trade unionist and author of, oh, look at this, author of Despised. Maybe that's why I kept saying the word. My eye must have caught that. Despised, Why the Modern Left Loathes the Working Class. Welcome to the show, Paul. What did you make of the in front of camera bonhommery, the scripted lines, but some of the little things that you saw, some of those body language cues, what happened during the course of the state visit? I want to get your assessment on this from a sort of ex-Labour or currently Labour, I don't know where you stand still, from a left-wing point of view, so to speak.
Well, good morning, Alex. I mean, you probably won't be too surprised to hear me say that I loathe Donald Trump with a passion on a personal level. I think he's an appalling human being, but there is no doubt at the same time that he has done some things in America that frankly needed doing, taking on the DEI agenda, which has been so divisive, taking on the trans maniacs in terms of men in women's sports, which absolutely needed to be done, talking about bringing jobs and industries back to America, thousands of jobs and entire industries that have been lost abroad and have, given rise to huge deindustrialization across the Rust Belt and has created, I think, a political chasm between the elites, particularly the Democrats when they were in power, and ordinary working class voters. So in that respect, I think he's to be admired for doing some things that need doing, but that needed doing. But that doesn't mean that we should admire him on a human level. I suspect.
Well, I never really understand this, right? You know, if he's a good leader doing good things for America, that's all I care about. I don't know him personally to know whether I'd like him or loathe him on a personal level. I always find it. I despise Sir Keir Starmer for how he's running this country. Actually, I have a feeling if I sat down and hung out with the man, I'd probably get along with him fairly decently. I never really understand that when people say I loathe someone on a personal level when they probably don't know him.
Well, the truth is, Alex, I mean, you can get an insight when someone is the American president and they're in the public eye pretty much 24/7. I think you can get an insight into their character. And when you have a president who, talks about women in the way that he does, he was caught, off guard once talking about grabbing them by a certain area, which I won't repeat.
I don't know, Paul, I've heard much worse, frankly, and laughed at it. I ain't gonna lie.
But not from the American president.
He wasn't the president at the time. Anyway, let's not go down this way. Let's forget this because everyone's entitled to sort of love, loathe whoever they want to. Let's stick with the politics of this because it seemed to me that there was a sort of almost paternal feeling towards Britain from Donald Trump. He kept repeating again and again when he sort of was saying how much he dislikes Sadiq Khan. My mother was born in Scotland. I love the United Kingdom. He seemed to be taking the opportunity to come and give the Prime Minister a public dressing down, saying, you're getting things wrong in this country. Your people are suffering as a result. Sort it out. And I think he's got a point, doesn't he?
Well, I mean, to be blunt, I think from Keir Starmer's point of view, I think the state visit and particularly the press conference yesterday probably went about as well as he could have expected. I mean, I think actually Trump was quite restrained. When you see the way that he speaks in very blunt and abrasive terms in press conferences with other world leaders, he pretty much held back. So from the Labour government's point of view, I think it was pretty much a success. But look, you have to sometimes hold the candle to the devil, as the saying goes. And I can't imagine that when they're both out of power, as they probably both will be in a few years' time, Starmer possibly sooner, I can't imagine they're going to meet up and go dancing together. I don't think that they are bedfellows politically or personally, but to both their credit, I have to say, they're playing the game. They're playing the diplomatic game. They know that it's in the interests of their country to at least show that they're forging some sort of decent rapport, some sort of personal relationship. And that's what you have to do. So for all my criticisms of Trump as an individual, I think it's absolutely right that Starmer does reach out to him and does try to cement the very...
I mean, Starmer doesn't really have a choice, does he? If we don't have the big tech investment from America, we're going to hell in a handcart economically, and we're getting that despite the fact that Lord knows how we're going to power all of the servers that these big tech companies are going to need, considering we've got the highest highest energy prices in the world. To me, Starmer's out the begging bowl because we're basically bottoming out. And thank goodness Donald Trump loves Britain enough that he can put those political differences to one side and be there for us. But, however, the one person that Donald Trump didn't want in the entourage of Starmer yesterday, someone who he's very keen to avoid, and someone who, frankly, I think that, I mean, Starmer doesn't want to, but I think Starmer needs to drag him to one side and say, listen, mate, keep your trap shut. You're disgracing us on the world stage, is Sadiq Khan. Let's remind ourselves of what the President of America said on his way back home on Air Force One.
I didn't want him there. I asked that he not be there. I don't want. I think the mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world. And we have some bad ones. If you look at Chicago, if you look at, but I think he's the equivalent of the mayor of Chicago. I think he's done a terrible job. Crime in London is through the roof. The mayor of London, Khan, Mayor Khan, has done a terrible job. And on immigration, he's a disaster. No, I asked that he not be there. He wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him.
Thing is about Sadiq Khan, he'll probably love that, won't he? The man's such a narcissist. Just the mention of his own name probably gives him chills of satisfaction. But, I mean, you can't blame Donald Trump for saying, I don't want him anything to do with this, if that is what happened. I'm sure Sadiq Khan says, I didn't want to come anyway. Because he has behaved disgracefully. He doesn't appear to understand the art of protocol, of diplomacy, of statesmanship. He's just a little narcissist who likes to virtue signal.
Well, I mean, let's be blunt, Alex. I could throw exactly, and I did at the top of the chat. I mean, that's pretty much what I said about Donald Trump on a human level. And you're saying it about Sadiq Khan. Now, I absolutely have got criticisms of Sadiq Khan. I think the whole thing in terms of their relationship between Khan and Trump and some of the public announcements has been pretty unedifying on both sides, to be perfectly honest. But I think with Sadiq Khan, he needs to, first of all, concentrate on being mayor of London. There's a whole lot that's wrong in London. I work in London. I've met Sadiq Khan in the course of my work as a former trade union official, actually. And I think most Londoners would like to see the London mayor concentrating on London issues rather than on foreign policy issues. And I think the second thing is too often Sadiq Khan plays to a particular cohort of London voter, which is that kind of young, cosmopolitan, liberal, globalist voter, and forgets that actually across London, there are millions of people, actually, voters, many who voted for Brexit, despite the propaganda that's often spread about the London Brexit vote. And are actually quite small-c conservative in their views. There's working-class areas like the place I grew up in Barking and Dagenham that are worried about things like globalisation and rapid demographic change and the agenda of the cosmopolitan liberals in charge. But Khan never factors those people in. Khan never, when he's making public pronouncements or policy decisions, and we saw famously a couple of years ago, you'll recall, there was a mayor's document that actually said that a white family was not representative of London. Yeah. I mean, if that was said about any other cohort, demographic cohort, they would have been held to pay. So I would like to see him concentrating on some of those issues rather than getting into continual spats with the American president.
Oh, yeah, I don't want him concentrating on those issues because I get the impression that Sadiq Khan is essentially an inverse racist. So I'd rather he stayed out of talking about things like that and just did what he's supposed to do on crime, did what he's supposed to do on grooming gangs, which we know exist in London, rather than trying to bait Susan Hall by trying to sort of make her walk into a trap where he'll turn around and call her an Islamophobe or a racist. That's why I dislike the man. We have very serious issues in London, and instead he's snide, he's sneering and he's name-calling and isn't remotely doing his job. Let's talk now about this crazy Your Party. I mean, I made a little joke on X because Zara Sultana, for those of you who don't know the story, this is the new party that was sort of established by Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn, and most of those sort of Muslim vote MPs are now part of it as well. Something funny's gone on where Zara Sultana sent out an email saying, you know, sign up to this, asking for membership fees. It went to 20,000 supporters. Jeremy Corbyn then booted her out, sent another email saying, whatever you do, do not pay money, do not use this particular link. A row erupted over this fundraising, which could have got them over £1 million. And Zara Sultana has responded, calling all of her colleagues a sexist boys' club, saying that all of these men didn't want to hear her views, didn't want her to play a significant part in the party. Do you think she's got a point?
Well, no, frankly. And I would say that as someone who's been active on the political left for virtually all of his adult life, I've come into contact with the far left quite a lot. And I have to say, this is pretty remarkable, even by their standards. The far left are always, this is proper sort of People's Front of Judea stuff. They are always focused far more on obscure points of doctrine than they are on the bigger picture in terms of trying to win people's votes, and are far more interested too often in fighting each other than fighting what they would call the real enemy. And I think in some respects, I think the person who would probably be happiest about this is Keir Starmer, because I think there was probably, I mean, I don't think this Your Party thing was ever going to win power, let me be clear about that. But it certainly had the capacity to take votes from Labour's left flank. I think that was clear, particularly if it hooked up with the Greens, who under their new leader seem to be making some cut through. And I think that put Labour in a really difficult position, where they were suffering from a pincer attack, where they had Reform on their right flank in the Red Wall and places like that, and the emergence of this party and the Greens on their left flank. So if this thing all turns to dust, as it may well do, as lots of far left initiatives frankly do, then I think the beneficiary of that will be Keir Starmer. But again, I mean, what an unedifying spectacle. I mean, the party hasn't even launched yet, and there's already a schism. I mean, that tells you pretty much who you
I must admit, I made a rather sort of pointed comment about maybe some of the patriarchal attitudes of some of the men in her party, and whether or not she'd want to call those out. Listen, it's funny, isn't it? Every now and then a story lands on your desk, and it is the perfect story for the person that you happen to be speaking to. Now, this is a Talk exclusive. Remind me where you said you were from there, where you were born, Paul.
I grew up in Barking and Dagenham.
Oh, perfect, because this is a barking story. Remind me, Paul, of what your former profession was.
Well, I still am actually a firefighter.
Oh, perfect. This is all about Barking Fire Station, would you believe? Seriously. It's a Talk exclusive by Isabel Oakeshott. Apparently, our national flag was proudly hanging at Barking Fire Station. But a 999 call came in demanding that it be torn down. The complaints came in at 10:53 on Wednesday morning. A caller rang the emergency line, of course meant for life or death incidents, to report that firefighters were displaying a Union Jack inside their station. Instead of dismissing the call, London's Fire Brigade's Central Control contacted the station and ordered the watch person on duty to remove the flag. The firefighter refused. The matter was then escalated to a senior officer, a borough commander, who overruled the watchman and commanded the flag be taken down. Now, a London Fire Brigade spokesperson has said, as a uniform service, the brigade has clear policies on how flags should be flown across the organisation. The Union flag is flown at the brigade's headquarters in Southwark and at the London Operations Centre. At London fire stations where a flagpole is present, the brigade's crested flag should be flown. But, I mean, what is your reaction to this? So, I'm sorry if I've just put you on the spot. It's just emerged on my desk too as our own exclusive, but I just couldn't believe it. And the fact that I'm speaking to you, should they have buckled to this? Should that flag still be flying there?
Well, I mean, as you say, it's literally the first time I've heard about this story, and you know, you'll appreciate I don't know all the details other than what you've told me there. I always think, I mean, I would like to see the national flag flying from all public buildings. Actually, we fly so many different flags, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's the Pride flag, and too rarely do we actually fly our own national flag from public buildings. So I have absolutely no problem with it at all. I mean, it's certainly true to say, I have to say, that there is quite a strict policy in fire services about when flags should be flown. You know, if a member of the royal family dies, for example, if it's St George's Day or something like that. So it could be argued that strictly the flag wasn't being flown in accordance with policy. I like to see a common sense thing a common sense approach taken to these type of things. If people are simply displaying in a kind of benign, inoffensive way, expressing their patriotism, I think that's pretty harmless.
But also, this is inside the station. What are they going to do? Phone up and complain that you're making chili con carne next or something? You deign to eat a pork chop while you're sitting around hanging out waiting for the emergency call to come in. I mean, it's just a constant erasure, frankly, of our culture and the things that should bind us together. Paul, I love speaking to you. Thank you ever so much for coming on the programme. I really appreciate your time. That's the brilliant Paul Embery there. Former trade unionist, author of Despised: Why the Modern Left Loathes the Working Class.